And welcome to the best fantasy football show that is airing at this moment right now on YouTube, being broadcast from my spare bedroom. I am your host at Hot BFF with two P's. As
that
always,
is very specific.
Yeah, well, it's the best one. Best one we broadcast. Best one we broadcast from me, particularly being in my spare bedroom / home office, and you being wherever you are, somewhere in Springfield, Illinois. Thank you all for joining us. Bit of a weird recording schedule that we did not pre-announce. Yeah, we're a little busy with life and stuff, so thank you for being with us. I am your host at Hot BFF with two P's, which I may have said already, as joined by the power of the internet by my forever co-host at Dan Thury at Thury BFF. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I'm a little burnt. I got 2 rounds of disc golf in, and I played my best rounds yet, so I'm pretty excited. I'm feeling pretty good, we'll say.
I was scorched after Monday and Tuesday. Our pool opened up here, so I spent 2 days like poolside, and my shoulders were not happy about it. And then I'm going to be in Fort Lauderdale / Miami / it's really Hollywood, Florida for something like a week. Yes. So I'm going to be even more red and miserable. So it's definitely been not fun. Tons of aloe has been dispensed onto my body. But anyway, thank you for joining us. We are here to talk the NFC East today. We are going to preview the Cowboys, who figure to be meh as normal, the Eagles, who should be pretty good again, and then the Giants and Redskins, who are going to be absolute crap. Just a spoiler alert. We'll talk about all the fantasy football implications, hit some storylines. You can follow the show at BeerfieldFF, Twitter, Instagram, Untapped, Beerfield Fantasy Football on Facebook and YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit that little notification so you know when we're live and you can hop on and interact with us and defend your team and shit talk us, as I'm sure plenty of Cowboys fans will after today.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll get a lot of the Raiders fans to come after us when we do the AFC West. I can't wait for that one.
You guys are absolutely passionate. All right, let's go ahead and find out what's fueling us today.
What's fueling Beerfield?
And we're both going European?
Yes.
What do you got?
So this is a bit impromptu because, spoiler alert, we are never, ever ready.
We're not prepared.
We're always ready. We're just never really prepared. I'm drinking Burkhoff. It's called Burkhoff beer. It's their Krek, which is a Belgian style with cherry juice. I got this for free when we were doing a tasting back in February, and it still kind of holds up well. So I guess good luck to me.
I guess good luck. Yep, I am drinking a Spring Prost from Joseph Sprout. It's a Maybach-style lager. I actually picked this one up at Trader Joe's among some other like 60-cent to $1 beers, and it's spoiler, it's pretty good. I've only had it for a few weeks, but it also has maintained its freshness, so that's always good news. And speaking of news, we have some of that. 4 reviews coming up later.
Yes.
News.
It's going to be a shorter news segment this week as we are recording on a Thursday just because of like luxury suite baseball games and flights and graduations and things like that. So we wanted to make sure we didn't miss for you, so we had to roll it back a couple days. Starting with the roster news, 2 signings to report on. The Saints have signed running back Buck Allen, who won't necessarily hurt Alvin Kamara or Latavius Murray, but could make the roster as a primary backup and were something to happen to Kamara.
Yeah, he's the Kamara handcuff. If anything were to happen to him, please, nothing happened to Kamara because I really don't like Buck Allen.
Buck Allen always finds a way.
I know. He's like the Ryan Fitzpatrick of running backs. Of Blunt. He's like the skinnier version of Blunt.
That can actually catch.
That can actually catch a football.
Yep. So just annoying, really. That's the only way he's like Blunt.
Pretty much.
Jaguars signed wide receiver Terrell Pryor, which he had one good season and then kind of fizzled, but the Jaguars, if anything, have some opportunity. I mean, you figure D.D. Westbrook and the return of Marquise Lee are going to take up 2 of those spots, but then that that third spot's a little open.
I still think it'll be Keelan Cole. I think Pryor is just more of a camp body, and I'm not betting money that he makes it out of training camp on this roster.
Well, it definitely is a let's see what we have move, I think.
Yeah.
For them with Terrell Pryor. So we'll see what they have. Moving along into the injury news, just some OTA updates. Marvin Jones is limited to side work at OTAs after a knee injury. Kenny Golladay, surprisingly, is not participating, though, at OTAs after a late-season chest injury. There was no word on specifics of what that was, but it's apparently still got him sidelined, so that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
least.
this is a running team, so I don't know how much they really need their wide receivers on the field. But
yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. Yeah, I got a good kick out of that.
Yeah, same here.
Speaking of running teams, Jerick McKinnon is not participating in OTAs. His training camp status is not in jeopardy. They're just taking it slow with him. So in a subsequent report, which I found mildly amusing, Tevin Coleman is getting the majority of the camp work, which, according to one beat reporter, means he's going to be the starter. Just never mind the fact that every other running back quite literally is out injured.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then in more probably intriguing news, Todd Gurley's not participating in team drills either.
I'm not surprised. I don't think he really needs to. I think they want to ease him back and make sure he's 100%. I wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't take a snap in preseason.
I wouldn't be either. I think they try to save the knee for the season and not put any more wear and tear on that than they have to. So,
I agree.
But yeah, they're definitely being cautious with him. And to the LOL segment, which does have one thing Dan just mentioned.
Laugh out loud news of the week.
All right, so this first one is just the ongoing Ravens saga of amusing, at least from me. Steve Biscotti said Lamar Jackson, quote, won't be running 20 times a game. That's not what this offense is about. The offense that went out and drafted every speed guy they could possibly find, brought in Mark Ingram, and the same Lamar Jackson that claims he cannot consistently throw a football, which I guess it does explain why Lamar Jackson was confused by the offense last week, because what? I don't get to run 20 times? Well, what am I supposed to do now?
Just hand the football off to Mark Ingram.
I guess, because
all the checkdowns to Mark Andrews and Justice Hill and a couple to Marquise Brown.
This offense is going to be terrible.
As a Ravens fan, I'm going to be it's going to be brutal. It's just brutal.
Yep, it's not looking too good. Everything out of camp is not boded well for Lamar Jackson and company, and yeah, this is just, it's the owner saying it, but it's either super out of touch or just really, really bad news if this is going to be a throwing team, because they aren't built. They're built to be speed and gadgety.
I mean, let's say, he meant to say he won't have 20 design runs a game, because
he's still going to run.
That makes sense. He's going to run probably 12 to 18, 15 to 18 in that range.
Yep. Just
because of design runs and scrambles. But I mean, he can't be yelling at Lamar Jackson for running with the football if he, it evades the pocket and goes and takes off. That's kind of his part of his game. So I won't be surprised if you won't hear more contradictory statements about this.
Or it just is complete falsehood, because that's, I mean, look, you went out and drafted a guy. You can't take away the best part of his game.
You've seen teams do that and fail. I mean, I think Carolina tried it with Cam. I know the Titans have tried it with Mariota. So,
yep. And then, you mentioned it earlier. The Lions are, quote, a running football team, which I'm not sure how that works when you've had literally one 100-yard rusher over the last decade and, kind of can't play from ahead. You got to have a defense if you're going to be a consistent running team.
I mean, they're going to try.
They will try.
It's going to be a lot of Matthew Stafford in the second half.
It's good news for Stafford, assuming they're not stubborn. Otherwise, they're going to be a below 500 team, which I think that they will be anyway.
I don't see them winning more than a handful of games.
Yeah, I don't either. All right, let's get to the meat and potatoes. Let's do some NFC East division previewing.
Division Preview.
All right, for those of you that weren't with us last week for the AFC East, this is a real simple format. We'll go through the teams in alphabetical order. We'll talk about each team's must-own, some key stories and battles, how we project that working out, get into some statistical projections for guys. We'll run through all 4 teams that way with a beer review in the middle, and then we'll kind of take our shot at, guessing how this division unfolds and some guys we're targeting and some guys we're not targeting to wrap up the episode. So, that being said, let's go ahead and start with the Dallas Cowboys. I think we can both, pretty well assume the must-owns here are Zeke and Amari.
Yeah. I'm pretty high on Dak.
After
doing his projections, I actually like him a lot this year.
I do too.
Yeah, his ADP, I don't think is as high as it was last year or 2 years ago. So there's some intrigue here with how the second half offense looked last year.
Yep. The only reason I didn't put him as a must-own is I didn't know if you were going to be as high on me on him. So how do you project Dak another year in this offense? How do you see him progressing with Witten back and a full season of Amari Cooper? Because I've got him pretty favorable.
I got him just shy of 4,200 yards at 4,174, 25 touchdowns, 10 picks, 321 rushing yards on 63 rushes. And 5 more touchdowns. He scored 6 rushing touchdowns in every season he's been in the NFL. That's absurd.
Yep.
So there's a lot of upside. 564 passes. I do expect this team to be throwing even more. So they draft Tony Pollard. They brought in you get another year with Gallup and Cooper, and you bring back Jason Witten. I expect this offense to be better than what people expect, or better than what we've seen over the last couple years.
So once again, we're super similar with him. I've got him just over 4,200 yards at 4,268, 25 pass touchdowns to just 9 picks, 6 rush touchdowns on 271 yards, 59 attempts. So I think the full season of Amari Cooper, another year with Michael Gallup, bringing in Randall Cobb, and adding Jason Witten really does help Dak Prescott. He's actually projected ahead of Tom Brady for me.
Yeah, I have him 2 points per game. I think almost higher than him. I gotta bring up my notes for it. But yeah, I didn't expect to like Dak that much. I mean, I liked him a little bit coming into this year. Then when projections came out, I was a big fan of Dak.
Yeah, no, I am also a big fan of Dak, and if the ADP is low, then it's not a bad pickup. He's going to give you some rushing floor. He's done nothing but not turn the ball over and been efficient with his passing since he came into the league. And now you give him a receiver that can actually beat coverage, unlike Dez. You take away Cole Beasley, but you bring back Witten. I think that works out. So we think Dak's going to be good. So how do you see Amari Cooper after a full year in this offense? What do you see him landing at?
All right, I got him at 132 targets, 65 catch rate. So puts him at about 86 receptions, just shy of 1,200 yards at 1,152, 10 touchdowns. Nice year for him. He was on a decent pace for the second half last year. He was a little bit boom busty at times, but the boom was big and the bust wasn't as bad as it's been in Oakland. So I do expect him to have some down weeks like most receivers will be. But a full off season with Dak and this offense, and then you bring in, some quality talent and Cobb, and you bring Jason Witten back, should only help open things up on top of already having Zeke and Gallup there. So I like Cooper this year. I like Cooper almost every year. I was trying to be a little bit more tepid with my projections with him, but it just kind of fell in line to where I don't, outside of injury or this offensive line taking a massive shit, I don't see Cooper having a bad year.
Yeah. Once again, we're about equal on everything. I've got him at just 7 touchdowns, about 1,178 yards on 132 targets, 92 receptions. So I also like Cooper as a top 10 level receiver this year. After a full season with the Cowboys, we saw him start to do a lot better once you got him out of Oakland, and him and Dak really started to hit it off as the year went on. Is there any other wide receiver here that is at least intriguing with Cole Beasley gone that vacates some targets? You got Allen Hurns back. They brought in Randall Cobb. You also have Michael Gallup entering his second year. So if there's another receiver here that it could have some value, or do you not see any of them?
I don't really have him I guess, projected both well. Gallup and Cobb are actually pretty equal for me. Cobb was a little bit more eye-opening because he should have the Cole Beasley job in hand, and we got to see how effective Cole Beasley was for Dak Prescott. So I expect if Cobb is healthy, which has been tough for him lately, he should have some value. I don't think either of these guys are redraft value, but they will definitely be potential waiver pickups, especially if Gallup can take the next step up. He struggled a bit, especially first half. He was just horrible with his catch percentage. Not as bad as Zay Jones, but I do expect him to get better in that regard. And you got to see a little bit of a positive uptick with targets in him when they traded for Cooper.
So I looked at Gallup in a little bit more of a favorable light. I agree that I'm not going to spend high draft capital on him. I think he's probably waiver level replacement. But I had him at 89 targets and improving his catch rate to 57%. And the reason for that is actually Allen Hurns. Michael Gallup last year was used in a way that Michael Gallup should not have been used. He was used as a field stretcher. And now with Cooper and Hurns there for a full season, I don't think you have to use Michael Gallup as a field stretcher because he's not fast enough to do that. But he was getting targeted downfield, and the results on that were not good. And with Beasley gone, I think that frees Gallup up to run more underneath routes, use his body a bit more, and showcase some of that route running ability that made him one of my favorite and your favorite draft prospects last year. So I've got him at 89 targets, 51 receptions, just over 600 yards, which puts him in that wide receiver 4 range, which is replacement level, streamable, kind of like we talk about Adam Humphries. I like to have at least one of these guys on my team if I need to plug somebody in that's not going to give me a 0. I think he's there. And I do agree with the assessment on Randall Cobb that he could see Beasley level targets to a degree. I've got him at 62, which is a little less than what Beasley had last year, but I've also got him missing a couple games, so not quite as favorable on Randall Cobb just because of the injury history. But Michael Gallup's definitely someone I'm watching, and more specifically how they use him, because I thought he was miscast in how they tried to use him last season.
Yeah, like if they decide to actually roll with Hurns instead of Cobb and they push Gallup on the inside, I'll be even more intrigued. He could fit that Beasley role and then give plus. We're actually not that far off on our projections. I have 80 targets, 48 catches for Gallup on 60% catch rate. So I expect that thing to jump up as he gets into more of a comfortable role. That puts him at just shy of, or just over 650 yards and 5 touchdowns, because I expect this offense to be good. I expect Dak and this throwing game to be even better than it's been since he's been a rookie. So I do expect uptick, and I think Gallup is going to have some streamer weeks in some of those deeper leagues during bye weeks.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. All right, moving on to Jason Witten. What do you see from Witten coming back after his 1 year off? How does that affect Jarwin? This team typically does give you at least a streamer level tight end. So what are we expecting from Jason Witten?
I just more of what we've seen from the past. I don't think a year off is going to change much for what he is and what he'll do for Dak. I got him at 76 targets, 55 receptions, just shy of 550 yards and a few touchdowns. I don't think he won't be tight in one level. I think he'll definitely be rosterable in 2 tight end leagues, tight end premiums. I think there'll be some streamer status to him during bye weeks and if any injuries occur.
And once again, we're super close there. I've got him at 78 targets, 57 receptions, 536 yards, 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So
there's he's going to be replacement level.
He's going to be in that 12 to 15 range, and he's going to be churned on rosters and picked up and started. Or if you're in a 16 team league, he's definitely draftable. So I do agree that it's more the same from before he retired, which is the yards per catch is going to be down because he's old and slow, but overall I think it'll be good.
Yeah, and there's just no competition for him there either.
No, I don't see Blake Jarwin really threatening him.
No.
And Rico Gathers, we know the team doesn't necessarily like. So unless I'm mistaken, I don't think there's anything else left to discuss about the Cowboys. So just a quick recap. Dak, Zeke, Amari Cooper for us are your must-owns. A little bit of intrigue from Jason Witten and Michael Gallup, and also Randall Cobb. But, late-round flyers at best for all of those guys.
Yeah, for any of our listeners there, are asking why we didn't talk about Zeke. You guys are kind of already know what you're going to get from Zeke. He's the focal point of this offense. It should roll through him. little more touchdowns than what he's had over the last couple of seasons as the offense continues to get better. So that's why we don't need to spend a lot of time talking about him.
Yep. No, I got Zeke projected for a ton of scrimmage yards at basically a little bit of a downtick in targets, but I think that's where I picked some of Cooper's and Gallup's up from, is I think they target the running back a bit less, but overall Zeke's still going to be top 5 for sure.
Yeah, Zeke's my number 2 out of the 2 divisions we've done.
Yeah, he's 2 or 3 for me. I think he's 2.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that there's no reason to really discuss because there's not going to be a huge change.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the Eagles. So this gets a little interesting because there's a ton of options on the Eagles. And this was one of the more fun teams to try to project, at least for me. And if by fun, I mean difficult because of the depth that they have.
It was fun. We'll say that.
It was. So must-owns on this team for me: Carson Wentz, Alshon Jeffrey, Zach Ertz. Those are the guys that you're really going to jump at. So let's talk about them for a second. Real quick, Wentz kind of been injured the last couple seasons. If you get a healthy year out of Wentz, what are you seeing? Because we haven't really seen Wentz healthy aside from ever.
I mean, outside of his was it week 13, 14 ACL tear during the Super Bowl run, which is kind of a freak thing. And then he just was never healthy last year, back problems. I think they rushed him back from that same ACL injury. So I do expect him to be completely healthy. I projected him to be 16 games or to play 16 games, which means I am a big fan of what I've seen from Carson Wentz. Just shy of 4,400 yards, 35 touchdowns, 10 picks. If this offense continues to play well and not try to get cute with these 3 receiver sets and just keeps rolling with 11 and 12 personnel that they like to do, Wentz is going to be just fine. He's got to stay healthy. Of course, this offensive line tends to get banged up from time to time, but a better running game, an even better receiving core with Brennan and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside and Deshaun Jackson as a better field stretcher. I love Wentz this year. I just hope he stays healthy.
Yeah, I got him at everything else about the same, but 4,700 yards, and most of that's the yards per completion because of the addition of Jackson and a healthy Alshon Jeffrey, who played injured last year and continued to report with him. So I've got him at 47. I like him even more than you do at 4,700 yards, 37 touchdowns. So I think that Carson Wentz is going to be fantastic. You don't have the rushing floor that bumps him up quite as much as you do with like a Dak Prescott, but he's still going to be very, very good.
Yeah, he's going to be, I think, someone that's going to be, like, he won't obviously sniff Patrick Mahomes type of level, but he's going to be, I think, that mid to late round quarterback that ends up finishing as a top 3 to 5 just because of he's healthy and the offense is actually pretty good in Philadelphia.
Yep. So Alshon Jeffrey, he's a guy that's kind of been hot and cold the last 2 seasons. Started last year a little bit down before he came back on. And dealt with injuries. So what do you see looking at from Alshon Jeffrey? We'll get to Zach Ertz a little bit later on, but as far as the must-owns, why is Alshon Jeffrey a must-own to you?
Because when he's healthy, he's fantastic. I got him playing 14 games, but in that 14 games, 109 targets, 70 receptions, just shy of 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns. We like this offense. I think that's pretty clear, so I'm not going to keep hitting on that. And as it's going to run through Wentz, Jeffrey and Ertz, and then a splash of this running game as well. So if Jeffrey remains healthy, which he's been battling, throughout his entire career, there's a lot to like from him. I know there's a lot of people that are up and down, so you can probably get him for decent value. It just depends how his hype train hits as people outside of us do their projections, but I'm a big fan of Jeffrey.
I'm a big fan of Jeffrey as well. I've got him playing 15 games, coming back relatively healthy, improving on his yards per reception, because, that's what he did with the Bears. He caught deep contested balls, and I think you see a little bit more of that. I've got him at just over 1,000 yards on 76 receptions, same 8 touchdowns. I think he's solidly back-end wide receiver 1 with those numbers, or at the very least a super high wide receiver 2, depending on how everything else shakes out. I definitely think that if you go running back first round, he's a wide receiver that you can get after that top tier is gone that you're not going to be disappointed with. And I do think he's a bit more consistent this season with all the help that's around him.
Yep, I agree.
All right. So moving on from that, we kind of talked about Jeffrey a bit. So let's move on to the guys behind him. Deshaun Jackson is back in Philly after a hiatus and kind of making the rounds. You've got Nelson Aguilar and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside there as well. How do you see those secondary pieces shaking out? Who do you see being the guy to own? Because you probably will be a second guy to own here. And, what are we expecting from these secondary receivers?
I am on the Nelson Aguilar train again. I think when they got done with the Golden Tate experience, they didn't bring anybody that should compete with Aguilar in terms of playing inside. Jackson and Jaws are both outside receivers. He'll go back into playing that slot role, which you got to see him, be very productive with Wentz in 2017. So I got him at 87 targets, 55 receptions, 660 yards, and 6 touchdowns. He's been relatively healthy, so I do expect him to play 16 games. Jackson, I don't have faith to stay healthy. I got him playing 12, and I feel like that's a little bit too much. But he'll be your boom bust like he always is. And then I guess if and when Jeffrey gets hurt and Jackson gets hurt, Jaws will then see some fantasy relevance. But until then, he won't.
Yep, I'm right there with you. Nelson Aguilar, I don't think he'd take a guy who's had 95-plus targets the last 2 seasons and just disappears like people were expecting him to. I think that I've got him at 89 targets, 684 yards, 4 touchdowns, and I could very well be slightly low on that. I think that Nelson Aguilar is going to be a reliable receiver that you can own if you're looking for some floor. Yet again, we know that they'll won't hesitate to use him, and it's like you said, what really hurt Aguilar down the stretch last year is them bringing in Golden Tate for whatever reason, because they're both inside guys. He's going to have that inside to himself again. Deshaun Jackson, I see more what you got with the Bucs. He's going to be good for a couple touchdowns, maybe a big game here or there, some big catches, but he's not going to be consistent with it. At Arcega-Whiteside, what I have to say about him is he's going to be good. Expect the Traquan Smith, Anthony Miller curve there, though, to where you see flashes of it in year 1, but not a ton of redraft fantasy relevance, so don't get overly excited there.
No, he might be a high waiver wire pickup if these wide receivers start to get hurt, but not for year 1. I like him in Dynasty, just not for year 1.
Yep. All right, moving on to the running backs. So they trade for Jordan Howard and draft Miles Sanders. How do you see that situation working out? I think the part we can agree on is that Corey Clement and Josh Adams are both pretty dead for fantasy value.
They're both. I expect still have 3 running backs active for most of the season. So I have that shaping out, but it'll be between Sanders and Howard for sure. This one was tough because we just don't really know. I think Sanders is the best running back that Doug Peterson's had since Jamal Charles. I think Miles Sanders is also the best running back that Philadelphia's had since LaShawn McCoy was doing his thing. So it's hard to know what you're going to get from him outside of him likely being the best pass catching back on this offense. Howard, to me, will likely see the LeGarrette Blount Jay Ajayi rule, which means first and second down, short yardage and red zone work with a sprinkle of pass catches every now and then. But Sanders, to me, is the guy to own just slightly. I got him at just shy of 1,000 total yards and 5 total touchdowns. That passing game is what's going to project him up. Jordan Howard's also going to be, I think, fantasy relevant. I got him at 8 total touchdowns, just over 700 total yards for him. So none of these guys are going to be, RB2s every week, but they're going to be really good flex options, and during bye weeks, a legit RB2 option.
Yep. I was a little bit more bullish with or bearish. I'm not sure what it goes. So with Miles Sanders, whichever one's better. So I do have it split, but I have it leaning in Miles Sanders' favor, especially as the season goes on. Got Miles Sanders at 190 rushes and 874 rush yards, which works out to about 11.9 rushes per game. You factor in receptions there. Got him at 41 targets and just under 300 yards with a couple touchdowns. So, to me, that's the upside. I pretty much projected Miles Sanders as what his upside is this year, because Jordan Howard is going to be there. It's not going to be a a single back situation. I've got Howard carrying the ball 137 times or 8.5 times per game with 22 targets sprinkled in there. So when it comes down to it, you're looking at in the 14 to 16 range for Miles Sanders per game and the 8 to 12 range for Jordan Howard per game as far as touches go. Slight edge to Jordan Howard in touchdowns, especially in the red zone. So I do think Sanders is a back to own. He's going to be in the RB2 range with Jordan Howard having flex value.
Yeah, I got him obviously a little bit different. 158 rushes for Howard, 126 for Sanders, but I have him at 64 targets, and Howard only getting 14. I think the roles there are going to be set, and I do agree with you that as the season progresses along, Sanders will gradually take even more work away, which is why I have Howard's numbers fading towards the back end of the season.
Yep. All right, and then the other thing we need to talk about, there's been talk of Dallas Goedert getting more work. Do you believe that hype, and how does it affect Zach Ertz? How are you looking at this tight end situation?
I don't buy into it for this year. To me, this is a team that wants to get back into the playoffs and wants to make a run for the Super Bowl again. And for that to happen, you can't change the offense up too much. This offense flows through Wentz and Ertz, especially those two together. So I don't have those numbers changing that much. 139 targets for Ertz, which gives him 98 receptions, just over 1,000 yards and 9 touchdowns. He's going to be a top 3 tight end again if he can remain healthy. Goddard will be effective, but I think this is going to be the Zach Ertz show, at least for this season. They do have an out of them next year, but we won't worry about that now. So I don't think it affects it too much, but I think Goddard will have some value in 2 tight end leagues.
Yep. I faded Ertz ever so slightly. I've got him at 131 targets, which is just slightly down from last year, and I mean just by a hair. 90 receptions, 953 yards, and 8 touchdowns. I went ahead and gave Goddard 49 targets, 36 receptions, 367 yards, and 5 touchdowns, which makes him streamable from time to time, especially for that 1 week that Ertz misses inevitably.
Yes.
And that was probably the difference, is I've only projected Ertz at 15 games. So
then we'd probably be identical.
We probably would
otherwise.
Be. So, overall, I do think Zach Ertz is still a top 3 tight end. Dallas Goedert's going to show you a bit more promise, enough to where they may be able to move on from him or from Ertz with that out in the offseason if they so choose to. But ultimately speaking, I think that Dallas Goedert for redraft, unless something happens to Ertz, is not going to be worth it. Ertz is still definitely must own. So anything else on the Eagles before we go ahead and wrap them up?
No.
All right. So just recap, Carson Wentz, we're expecting a big year from him, more consistency out of Alshon Jeffrey, and Zach Ertz to be more of the same. Miles Sanders and Jordan Howard will both be relevant with a slight edge to Miles Sanders, although you probably shouldn't spend major draft capital on either of them. Nelson Aguilar is going to be reliable.
I think he'll be a nice value for those double-digit rounds.
Yeah, not spectacular, but very reliable in the later rounds. So that's what we got for the Eagles. Let's go ahead and hit a beer review, and then we'll come back for the Cowboys and the Redskins.
Beer review.
All right, what did you think of Bergkauf?
Not a whole lot. I mean, it's not the toasted lager of badness. We won't get that bad. It's just not my style. It's a beer that I found in the fridge, so I figured, why the fuck not? Decently, like, you can tell that it's not real cherries in here. It's very sweet, not super tart. It's not like cough syrup sweet, which, if that would have happened, I would have just dumped it out on air. But it's a bit refreshing for these times. It's got some. It's a little malt forward, or it's a little bit of malt in the back end as you finish it. But it's like what you would expect from a Craig or from a Radler or Shandy, where it's going to be that like sugary flavored fruit that they have going on.
Yep. All right, and I was drinking on a Maybach from Joseph Brown. This one actually was pretty good. Malty sweetness up front, kind of like you'd expect from a Maybach, with a hint of toastiness on the back end, because Maybachs are a malt forward beer, but then you get a very, very mild hoppiness at the end, leaves just a tinge of bitterness on your tongue. Very, very good drink. Honestly, it's light enough. It's weird because it's like if you like the flavor of more winter beers, but it's refreshing enough for spring and summer. And it is marketed as a spring beer, as it should be, because I think it kind of bridges the two very, very nicely with a ton of flavor, but it's not heavy.
So it's kind of like a malt forward Kolsch.
Yeah. Yep. Malt. Yeah, essentially, because technically a lager, so lighter in body anyway. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So definitely a good beer. So thank you, Joseph Sproul, for being on. Berghoff, better luck next time.
I mean, it's not the worst thing we've had on.
No,
I'll say that.
It's not. All right. And speaking of better luck next time, on to the Cowboys. So,
you mean Giants?
Oh, Giants. Right.
Yeah.
We already talked to Cowboys, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
Oh, hey, on to the Giants. Oh, boy, that'll make everybody really happy that I just did that. All right. Well, speaking of better luck next time, the Giants.
Pretty much.
Saquon Barkley is about what you need to know about this team. I had the question here, can he dominate year 2 like he did year 1? My thoughts on this are absolutely yes.
Same here. Like it's going to be like I was expecting a little bit of tick downward, but no. I got him at over 2,000 total yards, 13 touchdowns. He's going to see similar targets, similar rushes. It's hard to predict if they'll change, but I can't expect this offense is not going to flow through Baquan.
No, especially not with Odell gone. I've also got him at 2,100 total yards and 17 total touchdowns, 4 receiving and 13 on the ground. Just because there's not going to be another red zone threat here. You look at what they have as receivers. Outside of Evan Ingram, who I have leading in receiving touchdowns, there's not anybody else you can really target in the red zone. And Ingram isn't really that type of box a guy out receiver anyway. So
yeah, I just don't expect a lot of offense on this team. So red zone work may be a bit tough. But we know with Barkley, a lot like we've seen with other true bell cows, they can score from anywhere on the field and at any point in the game after, they can, run the ball 20 times and then just break off an 80-yarder.
I don't expect a lot of touchdowns either. That's why I've only got Eli throwing 19 of them.
I got 20 total for this team.
Yeah. So
not good.
Yeah, not good. Moving on then. So Odell Beckham's gone, which means that you've got some receiving opportunity. So let's talk about Sterling Shepard and Golden Tate and Evan Ingram, who are really going to be the other 3 guys that catch some fantasy relevance here.
Yeah, so I guess from your question here is who benefits the most from OBJ's departure.
Yeah.
I put Ingram down because I do expect them to possibly use him more outside. He should be the number 1 target for receptions in the zone outside of Saquon. It's just I don't expect a whole lot from this offense. I expect the target share to be relatively the same throughout throughout these 3. He hasn't been able to stay healthy. This is Ingram, but I got him at 104 targets, 68 receptions, just over 800 yards, and 6 touchdowns. That's only on 15 games, as opposed to Tate and Shepard, who are both just over 100 targets, right around that 60 to 70 receptions. Tate under 1,000, Shepard under, or Tate at 900, Shepard at 800 yards, and then 5 touchdowns for Tate and 3 for Shepard. So I expect this to be pretty evenly throughout, and I expect the Giants have to throw the ball a shit ton and not score a lot of touchdowns.
So I think the Giants do have to throw at least a decent amount in comparison to the number of plays that they'll run, just because they're going to be playing from behind. I was a little more liberal with Tate and Shepard. I've got them both over 900 yards, 914 and 953 respectively, with the edge going to Golden Tate. 117 targets and 124, again, edge to Tate, with Shepard catching 1 more touchdown. It's pretty even. And the reason for that is that both of these guys are going to be kind of high catch rate over the middle, low yards per reception guys. We know Tate can rack up some yak, but and not big in the red zone. So both of these guys are going to fall into that wide receiver 2 and 3 range until we know a little bit more, just because I'm not sure who the guy's going to be. Both guys have been successful and flashed the ability to be successful in various situations, and Shepard's actually done it with Eli Manning. The touchdown volume isn't going to be there, but it is a team that's going to have to throw, that's going to be playing from behind. So I do think that, they're going to get targets, and there's nothing else really other than those two. I've got Eli throwing the ball 558 times, and not,
So you have him playing all 16 games, right?
Eli, yes, I did not project Daniel Jones to be able to beat him out.
I have it where Manning will play 10 games, and then they'll have a shitty record. I think it's right before the bye or right after the bye. Then Jones will take over. I don't think Manning plays 16 games this year. I think with the threat of Jones being a top 10 pick, and the fans are starting to turn on the organization, they're going to have to try to defend taking Jones that high, and I think that'll start this year, which is why I have my numbers lowered all across the board, because I think when Jones takes over is when you're going to see more Saquon and more Ingram.
It's just Gettleman's commitment to Manning, and Manning
That's
potentially
true.
having a few more years left that made me project him at 16 games. I could see it going that way as well. And then you're absolutely right. I would fade everybody. But without that, I think you're getting similar to last year, which is over 4,000 yards, but not a ton of touchdowns. And as far as in relation to who benefits the most, I completely agree. It is Evan Ingram in relation to the rest of his position. I've got him missing time, but still 81 targets, 56 receptions, 695 yards, and 5 touchdowns. So that's with him missing.
How many
2
games do you have him
14
playing? Okay.
So I even then, it's kind of the Jordan Reed thing where he's going to miss time, but he's still going to be a draftable, ownable, and startable tight end. And then who knows, maybe you're picking up Jason Witt in the 2 weeks he misses.
Yeah, I do trust Ingram to stay healthier than Jordan Reed, but he has missed at least one game every season so far.
Well, Jordan Reed light as far as injuries are concerned.
True. He's kind of like what Zach Ertz was before he broke out.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
So to wrap up the Giants, because there's not a whole lot there, and somehow they still have more than the Redskins. Saquon Barkley, absolutely. Mid-round wide receivers, Tate or Shepard, you probably could do worse with. And Evan Ingram is going to be a draftable tight end, albeit probably in around 9 or 10. He's not going to be in that top tier.
No, he won't. He'll be with the rest of with like the Njokus and Rudolphs. And
I think I've got him projected pretty close to Chris Herndon, actually.
I have him a little bit better. I do expect him to be used a tad bit more throughout.
All right, and moving on to Washington, and we'll wrap this up, and this should be pretty quick. I have nobody in Washington that I want to own.
Geis, if they can get rid of Thompson or Peterson. Thompson's the likely one.
It's Peterson they would have to get rid of for me to really jump on the Geis hype train.
Yeah, I think they wouldn't save enough to cut Peterson. I don't think it would matter at this point. Thompson with the draft and a Bryce Love, they could. But if they keep if they do keep Thompson and Peterson, it's hard to be in love with Geis. And as someone who's a massive Geis enthusiast, I did project him pretty aggressively to be the lead back here.
See, I didn't project him as the lead back. I projected it as a timeshare between him and Peterson because of what happened in New Orleans with Peterson. Peterson came out and produced last year, and he's not going to be okay sitting back and just being a backup running back or playing the mentor role. We saw that when he was in New Orleans. So to me, he's either getting a decent share of the carries, at least in a 50-50 split, which is how I have it projected for the most part, or he's not on this team because they also don't lose a whole lot by cutting him. And it's not like the Redskins have a ton of money tied up in anybody. Yeah,
I think for me is when I projected this out, I projected to be a bit tight for maybe half the year. And as Washington probably loses nearly every game at that point, decides to roll with Geis a bit more. And then I projected AP to see some of that New Orleans type of work.
What do you got him at carries wise?
Okay, so for carries wise, I have 183 for Geis, 114 for Peterson, just shy of 850 yards for Geis, 8 touchdowns, only 24 targets.
You've got him
Peterson.
running a lot more than I do, I think. What do you have Thompson projected at?
Thompson's at 42 rushes. Peterson's at 114. And
So-
then I got Bryce Love at 25. This team, I expect them to want to establish a run with this type of backfield and a defense if it can stay healthy. It's even though it's already starting to fall apart. But yeah, I think they're going to try to be a running team with no real lack of weapons, or just with no real weapons in general outside of Jordan Reed and as much as I like to talk about Trey Quinn, he's not a reliable weapon at this point. So I do expect them to run the ball as much as they possibly can, and that'll favor guys. It just depends, what they do with AP. If they want to make this a 50-50, if they want to ease guys back in from the ACL injury, I don't think they'll do that. It's just I don't like this team, and I'm not going to reach on guys as much as as much as I've thought about it. Even he's hurt.
So here's why I have them. Why I have them carrying the ball about 50 less times than you do. Jay Gruden, in his tenure as head coach, averages 404 rushes a game, or 404 rushes a year. It's 40%. It's one of the lowest in the league as far as teams that want to run the football, and that's across multiple offensive coordinators. So I know they had Kirk Cousins. I know they had Sean McVay in there for a while. Even though I know the run is their best option for a team that figures to be playing from behind a lot, with a guy who has not traditionally been the type to try to establish the run at the helm, I just have a problem projecting them carrying the football 460 times. So
I have them at 364, so I don't think it's that egregious.
For rushes?
Yeah.
How many plays do you have them running?
Oh, God, not a lot.
Okay. Yeah, I had him at just over 1,000 basically, because what I've kind of noticed is that for teams that play from behind, they tend to run a bit more offensive plays, especially when their defense can't stop anybody. You get really good teams that are up in the 1,100 range. Your really bad teams who just aren't good at anything are down in the, or your defensively strong teams are down in the 950 to 980 range. I've got them at just over 1,000 because they're not defensively good and will be playing from behind a lot.
Yeah, I think just with who I projected, I have them at 867. Or sorry, 887. I do expect a few more rushes from just random
Dolphins
players
level of futile last year.
Yeah, I don't expect a lot from this offense. But I think I've naturally have a lot of teams lower than what we've seen.
Yeah. So we talked about Geis and Peterson. I do think Geis is the guy to own, by the way, by ever the slightest margin. Yeah. Even though Peterson, I think, is decent. I've got Geis at about 140 more yards, one more touchdown, and definitely more receiving work by about 70 yards and a touchdown. So I do think Geis is the guy to own. I just don't think you can anoint him bell cow as long as Peterson's there. Thompson's going to be marginal. I've only got him playing 12 games, 42 rushes exactly with you there, and 64 targets. I think he does get the majority of the pass catching work among those backs.
Yeah, I got him only playing 10 games, but yeah, like I said, right around the same 54 targets for me. So just about 5 a game, 5.5 a game for him.
Yep. You have Dwayne Haskins starting the whole season.
I have Haskins playing 11 games. I think Keenum does start the year. I think they're going to, this one's tough. I wouldn't be shocked if Haskins plays all 16. And also wouldn't be shocked if Keenum holds them off for the first few games of the year until the team really sucks.
Yep, I projected Haskins at all 16. It was not right home worthy by any means. It's kind of we'll call it Sam Darnold levels of a year one, which isn't an indictment on Haskins. It's just rookie quarterbacks.
Yeah,
20 touchdowns, 15 picks, 3,500 yards. So I mean, you're not going to go draft him with that.
No.
I have nothing to like in the wide receivers here. Josh Doctson leads the team with 104 targets, 56 receptions, and under 700 yards for me.
I had a Trey Quinn. I think Doxson's almost done. They drafted 2 receivers, 2 outside receivers if they decide to put Harmon out there. I have Doxson starting, but I have him missing games. And then my love of Trey Quinn, I had to find a way to make him as relevant as I possibly could, as him being the target leader, which is 92. No touchdowns, or 2 touchdowns, just shy of or just over 600 yards. I don't expect much. I don't expect a lot of offense. And I expect a lot of rotating around trying to figure out what works best for them.
Yeah, I do too. I was a little more tepid on Trey Quinn. Just one,
As most people should.
I need to see the ability to stay healthy.
Yes.
I do like Trey Quinn. I do have him showing it a little bit this year, but I need him to stay healthy, and I think he'll be fine. And I think that, it also depends on what Haskins does, which makes that tough. And then Paul Richardson, kind of the same thing. I'm not expecting a ton from Terry McLaurin. So, to me, this is just a wide receiver core I want to avoid.
Yeah, at all costs.
Yep. And the tight ends, I've got kind of more of the same from Jordan Reed as last year. 88 targets, 638 yards, just 4 touchdowns, with Vernon Davis being relevant, because I do think the tight ends are the best pass catchers, but Davis is old, Reed can't stay healthy. I've got Vernon Davis at 41 targets and 2 touchdowns. So, Jordan Reed is the back end of probably draftable, but not going to feel great about it.
Yeah, I got Reed playing just 12 games, 83 targets, 61 catches, 622 yards, and 4 touchdowns. So pretty much in line with you.
Yeah.
Then Davis playing the backup role, and then kind of following similar lines of what he's posted since joining Washington, and that's 47 targets, 32 catches, 458 yards, and 3 touchdowns.
Yep. So the moral of the story on the Redskins, to kind of put a bow on that shit show,
Yes.
is Jordan Reed late. Dwayne Haskins, just watch him as a dynasty owner. You're not going to get a lot out of him in redraft at all, so don't think that you will. And, Darius Geis is the running back to own, but don't take him early. He's a mid, back into the single-digit rounds probably.
If they cut AP,
they cut AP, that changes that entirely.
I think Geis will be all systems go to a certain extent. This is a bad offense, so I don't expect a lot of touchdowns.
If they cut AP, Geis is going to be more around the 250 carry mark for me.
Yeah, he is. There's a good chance he'll see over 1,200 yards and have 8 to 9 touchdowns. So he'll be firmly a high RB2.
Yep.
If he can remain healthy himself. Their Washington running backs haven't really been able to stay healthy ever.
Yep. All right, for the second show in a row, we did predict this division to be about the same, honestly. We've got the Eagles winning it. I've got them 11-5. Dan's got them at 10-6. Cowboys in second. I had them at 8-8. Dan at 9-7. And the Giants and the Redskins bringing up the rear. Giants 4-12 for me, to 3-13 for Dan, and the Redskins were 2-14 and 3-13 respectively. So, Eagles, Cowboys, Giants, Redskins is how we see this division folding up. Out of everybody in this division, give me one guy you're targeting, and give me one that you want on your teams, and give me one guy that you're staying away from that might have some hype.
Outside of Barkley, I think is obviously
Barkley and Zeke excluded.
Barkley and Zeke, we don't have to talk about. I want one of either Jeffrey or Cooper. Love Nelson Aguilar late. As for avoid any Washington offensive playmaker, and that does include Geis. If they do keep AP, and then this division was pretty chalk for me.
Yep. It kind of is for me, too. I'm going to take a different route and say, as for targets, Prescott or Wentz, whichever one's cheaper, which will probably be Prescott, because I expect both of them to outperform whatever their draft position is, especially if they're healthy. As far as guys I'm going to avoid that might catch some hype, I'm going to go with, it's got to be Darius Geis, because people are going to think he's going to be the bell cow, and I just don't trust it enough as long as AP's on that team. So that's going to be my avoid for now. It's just because this division is so chalk. There's not anybody that is going to catch a lot of hype in this division that I'm going to look at and be like, I don't see it.
Yeah, I can't think of, I can't. Maybe Geis, if we start to keep, if we keep hearing, a bunch of positive talk, but at the same time, it's with AP's age and just with how bad Washington is, I just don't see a reason for them to keep Peterson on roster. I don't.
Nope, I'm right there with you. I don't either. That's all I've got for today. All we've got for this week. Thank you very much for tuning in. It's an early episode. It'll drop on YouTube, obviously, already, because some of you just watched it there. But for others, it will drop on Monday. We'll still schedule it for normal release. Next week, we will be back with AFC South.
Yes.
Sweet. I'm not actually looking at the schedule, so I'm just guessing. So we'll be back next week to continue this with the AFC South. Time and date to be determined, but likely Sunday again as I get back on Friday, though. Thank you guys for listening. I am your host at Hot BFF with 2 P's. You can follow the show at BeerfieldFF, Twitter, Instagram, Untapped, Beerfield Fantasy Football on YouTube. If you want to follow along, interact with us, chat about your teams, whatever, we're always open for that. Usually 7 p.m. on Sundays, but it varies a bit in the off season. Dan, any parting words, and where can the people find you?
Find me at 30BFF on Twitter, Instagram, all those things. I don't think we mentioned merch. We have shirts. We're out of hats, but I think with our August plans, we should have some more in stock at a later date. So merch is available as they get in shirts. I don't think either of us are wearing them. I can't see you, so
I'm in a Cubs polo.
Okay, so no, and I'm just wearing a normal shirt. So yeah, that's it.
Yep, that's all we got. Bye. See ya.
Bye.
Sayonara.
Bye.
We're out of here. As soon as I can find the outro, we're done.
Go on and get.
I swear we're leaving now.
We're like Lord of the Rings 3.
Yep.
Just
almost
multiple
over.
endings.
Just can't false finishes all over the place. It's like a WrestleMania match.
And here comes Sam.